Good morning. Welcome to the King's Report News Hour. And this is the first day of the repeated 6th month in the 16th year of Changi. Remember that in the heavenly calendar, the months go from new moon to new moon. And 12 cycles of the moon, some of you have heard this before, but anyway, some of you have not. 12 cycles of the moon are how many days? Pop quiz. 354 days. 12 cycles of the moon, new moon to new moon, is 354 days. So we come up short by about 11 days every year, right? Because it takes the solar year, which is the amount of time that it takes the Earth to revolve around the sun, is 365 days and a few hours. So what do? We have 354 days of 12 cycles of the moon. So we're short 11 days. So roughly every 3 years, not exactly, but roughly every 3 years, I think the exact number is, what is it? I used to say this, and I can't remember now. Was it 7 years out of every 19 or something like that? We need to stick an extra year, an extra month into the year so as to catch up. And the rule is, remember the rule? The rule is that the winter solstice of the Northern Hemisphere must occur in the 11th month. It's a rule. So in other words, the heavenly calendar, this is based on the lunar calendar of Korea, is anchored on the winter solstice. It's anchored on the winter solstice. Winter solstice must occur in the 11th month. because it's a rule. Okay. And if we didn't do anything, the winter solstice this year would not be in the 11th month. It's going to be in the 12th month. Well, we can't have that. So therefore, we stick an extra month in the year. We have a 13th month in the year. So that everything after that gets pushed back. And the winter solstice then comes back to the 11th month, which is where it belongs. Why the 6th month? Well, there's a formula for that. And I would have to sit down with you to explain that because it has to do with calendars and seasons and stuff like that. You can look it up if you're interested. But anyway, there's a formula for that as well. And so we're repeating the 6th month. We're not calling it the 13th month. We're calling it in Korean it's the Yun 6th month. Yun, Y-U-N. If you want to translate it into the Latin alphabet, Yun 6th month. So, or repeated 6th month. And so maybe there's a better translation. But anyway, I've been calling it the repeated month. Okay. So anyway, today is the first day of that month. And that's why, by the way, we have such a long break between the last holy day, which I guess was the day of True All Things, and the next holy day, which is the 7-1 and 7-8 ceremonies, which are going to be held at the end of August. Normally, you would expect them to be at the end of July, but they're being pushed back a month, okay, because of this extra month that we've got. Anyway, so today is the first day of the repeated 6th month in the 16th year of Chunki. Okay. All right, let's see. Let's go and take our tour around the kingdom and see what's going on right now in Chongpyeong, Tennessee. 68 degrees, mostly sunny. 88 for a high today. Sunny, partly cloudy and humid. Thunderstorm in spots this afternoon. Tonight, clear and humid. 69 for a low. Father's hometown, Cheongju, North Pyongan province in what is now North Korea, but who knows about the future. Currently 88 degrees and mostly sunny, and tonight mostly cloudy and humid, 71 for a low. Tomorrow times of clouds and sun, hot and humid, 91 for a high. And then at the Tony Room Palace in Northeast Pennsylvania, 70 degrees and sunny right now, 92 for a high today, partly sunny and hot, breezy, and with a gusty thunderstorm this afternoon. Okay, and then 67 for a low tonight, some clouds, humid. Down in Texas, Libby Rock RV Park and Campground, right now 71, mostly cloudy, getting up to 96 today. Very warm, variable cloudiness. Tonight, partly cloudy and humid, low of 76. Suncheon Palace in Korea, currently 84 with sunny skies. Clear and humid tonight, 77. 96 for a high tomorrow, partly sunny, hot and humid. And then at the Gunma Palaces in Japan, 91 currently, even though it's the evening, and mostly clear skies. Right tonight, 75 for a low, a shower in places this evening, otherwise clear to partly cloudy. Tomorrow, very hot with intervals of clouds and sunshine, 98 for a high tomorrow. And then at the Yilan property in Taiwan, currently 84, 78 for a low tonight, and 89 for a high tomorrow, mostly cloudy and humid, a thunderstorm in spots in the morning, followed by a couple of showers in the afternoon. All right, so it looks like the Gunma Palaces took the prize today. Okay, 98 degrees. Okay, now, Father is speaking about the fall here. We're in the book of the True God, chapter 4. And God viewed by True Father. 참 아버님이 본 하나님. God viewed by or seen by Father. Okay. And it says here that the devil raped 4 generations. 4 generations. You thought it was just Eve, right? But he raped 4 generations. And from the mother of the king, Wang Pu, and then the grandmother of the king, and Tevi Mama, okay, and then also the daughter translating something wrong here. This is not working out right. Let's see here. Wang Hu was a queen, and the mother of the king. Okay, so he raped the queen, the mother of the king, and also the grandmother of the king, and also the daughter. So all four were alive, all four generations were alive, and he raped all of these while the king was watching. He removed all their clothing and raped them all. And then he beat them to death. Then he beat them to death. He even raped the daughter. We must understand the incredibly tragic circumstances of God, who was not able to just strike down this kind of enemy, was not able to just strike down this kind of enemy. So we've talked before about how God, because God created the archangel, and the archangel, of course, became Satan through the process of the fall, but God created the archangel. And so God has to love the archangel to some extent, and so cannot strike down the archangel. And that is part of the incredible sadness that God has experienced until now. And so it is up to the restored Adam, true Father, and all of us as well, all of humanity as well, to restore sovereignty, or restore or subjugation, or to subjugate the devil, so that we are not ruled by the devil, but instead we are able to subjugate the devil and stand in a position to judge the devil and judge the angels that fell with him. Okay. So that means that we must what? We must complete our character. We must complete our character, and we do that by completing the four realms of Shimjo. We do it by becoming a substantiation of the word. And the way to become the substantiation of the word is to study the word every day, even for just a few minutes, like we do in the King's Report, even just a few minutes every day. But to hundok every day, this is the tradition that Father established, and that is a very useful tool for becoming a substantiation of the word. Okay. As I've mentioned many times, I'll mention it again. How do you take a pool of muddy water and turn it into a pool of clear water? You do it by pouring clear water into it constantly. And eventually the mud will all spill out, and you will be left with a pool of clear water. All right, so that is our lesson for today. Praise God for the lesson that He has given us. Praise God. All right, let's see what's happening. And today I want to start with an article that Jim Stevens sent me, and I appreciate his sending this to me. And it deals with what's going to happen in China after the CCP collapses, post-CCP China. And many people today will not be able to imagine such a situation, just as people, let's say in 1985, 86, 87, even 88, could not imagine a post-Communist Party Soviet Union or Russia. But it happened. It happened. So we'll see. So, and this is going to happen post-CCP China. The Chinese Communist Party will not last forever. And so we'll have to see what these people are saying about preparing for that eventuality. This is on the Epoch Times. And it says here, the Chinese Communist Party's CCP rule won't last forever, and the United States should start preparing for the day when China is free of communism, said experts at a recent Hudson Institute event. Having that discussion is essential, as a sudden regime collapse in China could also prove to be very formidable, said Miles Yu, former advisor to former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and director of the China Center at the Hudson Institute. You know, the bigger they are, what do they say? The harder they fall. And so the fact that CCP seems invulnerable today and seems like it is all powerful today only means that it is going to be it's going to fall that much harder, that much harder. Yeah. No, we can only see the surface. We don't know what's going on beneath the surface. I'm sure there is a lot. Well, there is a lot going on, of course, within the party, around the party, within the country. We do know. What do we know? We do know that a lot of people are dissatisfied with the CCP in China, and we do know that they are having economic problems. Now, right now, it doesn't look like it's enough to bring down the CCP, and it's a little bit hard to imagine what that process would be, right? What that process would be. Remember, in the Soviet Union, in 1989, October 1989, the Berlin Wall fell, and that was kind of the trigger, wasn't it? The Berlin Wall fell, and people from East Berlin were sort of streaming into West Berlin, and the authorities in East Berlin decided not to use lethal force to stop them. And also, let's see, I think Hungary also had a role to play, didn't they? They kept their border open, and I think people were escaping from Germany into East Germany into Hungary and then into West Germany. So there were things happening, and especially Gorbachev played a big role because he chose not to send in the military when Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia at that time, these countries decided, and also East Germany, these countries decided to sort of become independent. He chose not to stop them with the military, as had been done in Hungary in 1956, and also in Czechoslovakia. When was that? 68, I think, wasn't it? In the 1960s, anyway. He decided not to do that. And one person was commenting recently on a recent video that I watched that one of the problems with China is that it does not have a Gorbachev. It does not have a Gorbachev. Certainly, Xi Jinping is not Gorbachev. Xi Jinping is going to hang on to power with everything that he has, and he's going to resist reform and resist the collapse of the Chinese Communist Party with everything that he has, even if it involves the use of lethal force against thousands or tens of thousands of his own people. So that's just going to make it, well, as it says here, very formidable and pretty messy within China, and perhaps even kind of a civil war potentially if parts of the army or military decide to break off and join the opposition. Anyway, decades of the CCP's repressive rule have created scars and institutional flaws that could be very dangerous to the rest of the world too, he said at the event titled "After the Fall: Planning for a Post-Communist China." Right. We have to think about the same kind of formidable task that the world faced after, say, the regime collapse of Nazi Germany, Imperial Japan, and even the collapse of Soviet communism in Eastern Europe, he said. Well, I think it's hard to compare this to the fall of the Nazis and Imperial Japan because both of those cases, they fell as a result of a Western invasion, a foreign invasion, or in the case of Imperial Japan, the threat of foreign invasion. So it's a bit different. I think Chinese Communist Party, if it falls, it not, it's going to fall internally. I mean, who's going to invade China, right? Who's going to invade China in order to take out the CCP? In each instance, the United States dealt with the question of how to stabilize the country and transition those societies into normal members of the international community. He noted, well, in both Germany and Japan, the Allies occupied those countries. They occupied those countries, and in Japan, of course, for 7 years, from 1945 to 1952, the commander of U.S. forces was basically the Emperor of Japan. At first, it was Douglas MacArthur, and then after he was fired, when was he fired? Was he fired in 52? Anyway, the peace treaty with the United States and other allies, except Soviet Union, was signed in San Francisco in 1952. So until 1952, Japan was occupied by mainly U.S. military, but also other allies joined in the occupation. So no, and the United States is not. No one's going to occupy China, so it's different. Again, it's different. This is basically on a much larger scale. He said, likening the situation to a political war game. But I don't know. What is he saying? What is he saying? Is he asking something like UN troops to occupy China? Surely not. That would be very unrealistic. The prospect of the CCP's fall isn't all that remote, the experts said at the event. China now faces a growing economic crisis, a hostile international environment, discontent over its human rights abuses, and political infighting. Chinese leader Xi Jinping disappeared from the public life for 14 days earlier this year and skipped the BRICS summit for the first time without explanation. A number of Xi loyalists have been ousted, a sign that Xi may be losing power, or not. There's a I put this video on the description of one of our recent King's reports. Maybe I'll do it again today, where there are alternative explanations to why Xi Jinping didn't go to BRICS. For one thing, Putin wasn't going, so why should he? And also his loyalists. Well, turns out that maybe they're being promoted and not being ousted. So we always have to be careful with people who say things that we like to hear. And I think this man maybe ought to follow that principle. Totalitarian regimes can collapse anytime. Okay, that's true. That is true. And the CCP thinks about that possibility all the time. You pointed out. I mean, I thought his name was Yoon. Is it you? What's his name? Mao Zedong. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought it was Yoon. Right. Mao Zedong. Totalitarian regimes can collapse, and the CCP thinks about that possibility all the time. You pointed out every day it lives in paranoia, he said. Warden Chang, senior fellow at the Gatestone Institute and author of The Coming Collapse of China, echoed Yu's remarks, saying that the communist authorities are very, very insecure in Beijing. Gordon Chang, he's a nice guy. Okay, well, he's, in my opinion, a little bit, anyway, overexposed. Yeah, okay. Anyway, he says a lot. Okay. Right now, we're seeing the Communist Party in turmoil. Suppose the infighting gets worse. Well, suppose, you see, that's the word that we need to watch out for. Suppose. we can suppose anything we want. I can suppose that God's kingdom is coming tomorrow. We're free to suppose anything we want, but come on, let's keep it real, all right? Okay. All right, the regime change could go from either top down or bottom up, he said, and there's only a million ways that this can happen. Chang pointed to the months-long protests in China in late 2022, sparked by widespread frustration at the regime's harsh COVID-19 restrictions that deprived many of access to food and critical medicine. But they survived that, right? They survived that. So the Chinese Communist Party is very good at suppressing these kinds of protests. We need to understand that, right? Protesters in some places went so far as to demand that the CCP step down. So far as to demand. That's pretty weak. The Chinese people are not happy, he said. Well, yeah, people in authoritarian societies are often not happy. The regime is putting so much effort into keeping China together, it means the place is unstable. Much like with East Germany and the Soviet Union, the CCP's demise probably won't happen in slow motion, Chang said. I think when it happens, we're going to be taken by surprise. Won't happen in slow motion. It won't. We're going to be taken by surprise. All of a sudden, bam, it happens. That's how these things play out. Won't happen in slow motion. Well, we'll see. Financial security. In the event the CCP's collapse, the United States should act swiftly to seize Chinese assets within the country, starting with Chinese banks, according to Chang. Within the U.S., I imagine this means, right? Starting with Chinese banks. According to an April report by S&P Global Market Intelligence, the world's 4 largest banks by assets in 2024 were China's state-owned banks, Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, and assets of nearly $6.7 trillion. In comparison, the biggest U.S. bank, J.P. Morgan Chase, have more than $4 trillion in assets. Wait a second. So is he talking about seizing assets within China? That sounds like it. That means sending in Marines. Okay. China's foreign exchange reserve stood at 3.28 trillion in May, the largest in the world, according to Chinese official data. In the aftermath of a collapse, some factions vying for power in China could potentially loot Chinese banks to fund their political ambitions, Chang said, or they could exploit the country's foreign exchange reserves to increase volatility around the world. So he wants the US to seize Chinese assets in China. Yeah. See, this is a problem. This is a problem with anti-establishment people who are in America, or at least working with America. And the same thing happened with Iraq. Something similar happened with Iraq. Okay. That whole thing with Saddam Hussein having weapons of mass destruction, I'm convinced that this was a ruse concocted by Iraqis in exile who wanted to manipulate the United States into going to war against Saddam Hussein. And they were successful. And even General Powell made this report, remember, at the Security Council of the United Nations, where he presented all sorts of quote unquote evidence that Saddam Hussein was holding weapons of mass destruction. And he presented all sorts of pictures, even. All turned out to be wrong. And so now we have Chinese dissidents, such as Gordon Chang, now basically saying that he wants to manipulate the United States into going into China, sending military forces into China at the time of a collapse, so as to secure Chinese assets, including the banks and the foreign exchange, so that bad actors cannot go get a hold of it and use it. Bad idea. Bad idea. Bad idea. Well, good idea for him. Yes. Good idea for the Chinese dissidents, but a bad idea for the United States. In the aftermath of a collapse, yeah, some factions vying for power could potentially loot Chinese banks to fund their political ambitions. Yes, they will. They will. Yes, they will. But, and my goodness. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's go on. This is of the essence, he said, as the ultimate guarantor of financial security around the world. Financial security around the world. The U.S. federal regulators should secure assets, expecting other countries to follow the United States lead. Is he really? Am I really understanding him correctly? Does he really want us to send forces into China, or is he talking about something else? Likewise, the Treasury Department should also seize Chinese foreign exchange reserves and coordinate with authorities in known Chinese tax havens, such as London, to look out for disruptive activities, he said. No, I think he's really talking about sending the U.S. military into Beijing and Shanghai, which are especially Shanghai is the financial center, and securing the banks there. And I'm sure he's probably also talking about the gold reserves there. No, 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 no. Okay, to safeguard U.S. food industry, Chang suggests that the United States seize ownership of Virginia-based Smithfield Foods, the largest pork producer in the United States, which China meat processor WH Group purchased for $4.7 billion in 2013. Okay, yes, we can do that. Others suggested focus, well, I don't know about seizing, right? Because anytime you have a government seizing a private company. I mean, even though they're owned now by a Chinese company, they're still in the United States. The U.S. corporation, I'm sure, is a private corporation. So I think the United States government seizing ownership is not a good idea. Others suggested focuses for the transition include restructuring and downsizing the Chinese military, as well as bringing accountability for human rights abuses. So, okay, so yeah, they're treating China, they're saying they're going to treat China like they treated Nazi Germany and Japan after the Second World War. No, this is not a good idea. I can see why Gordon Chang would want to say this. He's a dissident, you see, and so he will do everything he can to mobilize the resources that he needs to accomplish his objective. And obviously, the United States government has a lot of resources that he would like to mobilize. But no, we need to, we were conned into the Iraq War like this. This is how we were conned into the Iraq War against Saddam Hussein. And Gordon Chang now wants to manipulate us. He's not conning us, I suppose, but he wants to manipulate us into a war against post-CCP China, whoever is taking charge there. Nina Shea, senior fellow and director of the Center for Religious Freedom at Hudson Institute, said she hopes to see the United States take immediate steps to pressure the CCP to release religious and political prisoners, such as 9 Catholic bishops, labor camp detainees in Xinjiang, pro-democracy activists in Hong Kong, right? To stop the regime's state-sanctioned forced organ harvesting. Hospitals and transplant centers in China should suspend organ transplant surgeries until they prove they are sourcing organs from voluntary donors, she said, and houses of worship that have been shut down should reopen. All right. Boy. Yeah, these guys. All right, they want to suppose something, and I suppose they're free to suppose stuff. Yeah. For each region seeking secession, okay, here we go. She said Hong Kong would likely be at the forefront in seizing any opportunity for autonomy. Well, not necessarily. The leaders of Hong Kong are loyal to Beijing. And that's because people loyal to Beijing have been put in power in Hong Kong, right? So there would have to be some kind of a regime change in Hong Kong, either through election or revolution, before this statement becomes true. With its recent democratic experience, high degree of human development, and a vibrant economy until the CCP crushed its freedoms, the city is most likely to succeed, she said. And yeah, Beijing has a large military force now stationed in Hong Kong. And actually, I would predict that I can also suppose stuff, right? I'm free to do that. I would predict that if the central government loses control, whoever the commander of the Hong Kong, the CCP military in Hong Kong is, Hong Kong-based CCP military, that commander is going to take power in Hong Kong. That's my prediction. And well, of course, the Chinese territory could just sort of not seceding, but just sort of falling apart, just sort of crumbling. That's possible, and then Hong Kong would be one of the pieces, rather than seizing an opportunity for autonomy. It just may be that the central government no longer exists, and so it's sort of every region for itself. For each region seeking secession, the United States should weigh the viability based on the will of the people residing there, regional conditions, and a set of guidelines reflecting U.S. interests, Shea added. Come on, this is not Canada, all right? We're not talking about Canada. Okay. There's been a lot of talk recently on YouTube about Alberta and Saskatchewan having a referendums perhaps as early as next year, and maybe becoming independent of Canada. Not necessarily becoming, a U.S. state, but at least becoming independent of Canada, kind of a new republic. And I guess the negotiations to join the U.S. would begin after that. But anyway, uh, this sounds like they're talking about that kind of situation where we have a stable situation. You know, Alberta and Saskatchewan, they're stable. They're stable. They have a stable political system. But we're talking about a situation in China where the central government has lost control, and we have, and I don't think secession is really the right way to say it. It's just falling apart, just crumbling like a cookie. The cookie crumbles, right? And you want to decide which pieces to pick up, right? So, uh, and different people will be in charge of different groups, different parts, and I don't know how many of those groups are going to be actually allowing the will of the people to be measured through elections or sort of, hey, let's do this by the will of the people. Taiwan's role will be interesting, actually. And I wonder if they discussed the role of Taiwan here. Fujian province, is it? Is that the name of the province that's across the strait from Taiwan? For example, you know, that province, which has a lot of give and take with Taiwan, may decide to sort of look to Taiwan and say, hey, you know what? Do you want to help us establish something here? That's possible. Okay. So actually, the United States, okay, but also they're not talking about Taiwan, are they? The panelists deliberated on whether the country could become a United States of China, with each region retaining autonomy. These people are smoking marijuana. these, these, I don't know. These, I don't know. This is completely unrealistic, in my opinion. Okay. When challenge, however, oh, there are challenges. Okay. Is the lack of a shared ideal, such as democracy and freedoms like those in America, Shay said. Yeah, okay. Finally, someone said something that made sense. Shay and you both agreed that the people will shape the future of a post CCP China. Oh, that's nice. You to say that. If they want to be a part of the federated state, that's fine. If not, just be independent. You told the Epoch Times. Again, let's let people decide. Okay. Well, experts. What does it take to be an expert these days? Come on. uh, 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 it's amazing to me that they don't seem. I don't know. These people are Chinese. Gordon Chang is Chinese. This guy, you obviously is Chinese. I'm sure they must know Chinese history. They know it much better than I do. But they don't seem to be really capitalizing on that knowledge of Chinese history. And based on what little I know about Chinese history, I would say that you're going to have something like the return to the warlords period, which kind of preceded the Communist Party takeover in the early 20th century, 1920s or so. And um, and during the warlords period, so countries such as Japan and also Western countries as well were uh, sort of taking advantage of different situations and vying for control of different warlords. And the warlords were, sometimes they would attack this way and attack that way and try to expand their territory and stuff like that. And of course, there was a huge amount of corruption. I think if I had attended this seminar, at the end of the day, I would have said to myself, "Wow, that was a huge waste of time." We can save this article and see how much of it comes true, but Who sponsored this thing anyway? Hudson Institute. Okay. The Hudson Institute sponsored this thing. Well, I hope the Hudson Institute got its money's worth in their view, because I think, yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on. Let's move on. Okay. All right. Speaking of U.S. financial regulatory authorities, let's go to the showdown, the showdown that President Trump had yesterday with where is that story? With the Fed chairman. It must be somewhere here. Here we go. Okay. Oh, and it says I'm not allowed to access this. All right, so we'll just go to our VPN. And where are we right now? The US. All right, let's go to Vancouver. Okay. Refresh. And voila. Okay. All right, so Trump goes to Powell's turf. So he visited the Federal Reserve Board headquarters, and looks like they are walking through the place where the headquarters is being remodeled or rebuilt. Okay. And right now, President Trump is showing him a document that Powell was not aware of. He's saying, look, it's going to cost even more that you've been telling us. You've been telling us 2.7 billion, but actually I have a document here in my pocket. And he pulled out the document saying, look, it's going to cost 3.1 billion, 3.2 billion. And Powell is saying, what? Yeah, it was a bad moment for Powell. Okay. And President Donald Trump, who has been critical of cost overruns on renovations to the Federal Reserve, toured the ongoing construction there on Thursday alongside Chairman Jerome Powell. Trump, who has repeatedly called on the Fed to lower interest rates, said that the cost overruns are not a fireable offense. As a real estate developer, what would you do with a project manager who would be over budget? One reporter asked Trump. And generally speaking, what would I do? I'd fire him, Trump said. Another reporter asked Trump if he believes the cost overruns give him cause to do that. Well, I'm here just really with the chairman. He's showing us around, showing us the work. And so I don't want to get that. I don't want to be personal. I just would like to see it get finished, Trump said. And in many ways, it's too bad it started, but it did start, and it's been under construction for a long time. It's going to be a real long time because it looks like it's going a long way. It's got a long way to go. Trump said moments before that the cost of the total project had reached 3.1 billion, while flanked by Powell and Senate Banking, Finance, and Urban Affairs Committee Chairman Tim Scott. Previously, the number had been at 2.7 billion, which exceeds what Fortune reports was a 1.9 billion project price tag for the project in 2021. However, Powell pushed back on Trump's claim that the renovations had reached 3.1 billion. So we're taking a look, and it looks like it's about 3.1 billion, went up a little bit or not, or a lot. Powell responded, I'm not aware of that, and inspected a paper Trump handed to him. After looking at the paper, Powell claimed that Trump was adding the cost of renovations for a third building, the Martin building, which has already been completed. Trump also asked Powell if he anticipated any more cost overruns. Don't expect them, we're ready for them, but we have a little bit of reserve that we may use. Hey, listen, excuse me, Mr. President, we got money in our back pocket here. So don't worry, yeah. We're borrowing like crazy. We've got $37 trillion in debt, but don't worry, we got money. We got money to burn. We expect to be finished in 2027, Powell said. When asked if Powell could say anything that would make the president rein in his criticisms of the chairman, Trump said, well, I'd love him to lower interest rates, as he slapped Powell on the back, drawing a laugh from the chairman. Later during the tour, Trump spoke critically of some construction decisions, calling it a very luxurious situation taking place. Specifically, he zoned in on the basement renovation of one building he toured and the fact that it requires what is called a reverse bathtub due to water lines underground. Yeah, Washington, some areas of Washington used to be a swamp. That's why Maryland decided to donate that land to the federal government back in the 18th or early 18th century, because it wasn't good for anything else. You couldn't grow anything on it. You couldn't build anything on it. So yeah, sure, take it away. So yeah, it's a former swamp. Okay, always a basement is the worst place in a building, and it's also the most expensive space to build, and especially here because you have the water line, Trump said. They're going down into the water, so they have to build a reverse, what's called a reverse bathtub. The water has to be kept out. It's very expensive construction, he added. Yeah, all right. So there is. So it looks like they didn't actually come to blows with each other, which I guess is the good news. But President Trump is doing things other things that he says is going, or he believes is going to take the place of lowering interest rates. For example, he's talking about doing away with the capital gain tax on home sales, right? That would, of course, that would be a big thing. That would be a big thing. For one thing, it would spur the housing industry, the housing market. More people would be buying, and more people would be selling as well if they don't have to worry about the capital gains tax. So that would be one way to increase the money supply. Basically, President Trump wants to increase the money supply, and that's one way that he could do it. And of course, if he increases the money supply, then it stands to reason that there's going to be inflation. But he says that, well, if there's inflation, then the Fed can rein in the money supply then, and raise rates then if they want, and that may happen. Talked about financial repression yesterday, right? And that looks like it's going to be happening. That's, of course, when you have the government forces savers to receive real interest rates that are negative. In other words, the interest rates that they receive on their deposits or on their savings is going to be less than inflation, and that's one way the government can deal with its a huge financial burden and sort of bring down the debt to GDP ratio. Well, we'll see. I think next week, next Wednesday, I believe it is, we're going to get the first estimate of the second quarter GDP, and we will see how that comes out. Okay. All right, let's see here. Let's go through some other. Recently I've been seeing some articles that President Trump's support is tanking, 37%, someone said. But Rasmussen is the most accurate polling agency, and they've demonstrated that over a long period of time. And they have met 49%, and then 50% disapprove. And right now, so he's a little bit down there, 49%. And right now, okay, so this is a strongly disapprove is at 41%, and strongly approve is at 34%, so that's -7 overall. Okay, but it's basically within the range that's always been, and so there's no sudden drop in his popularity. But of course, we know that leftist media are always looking for ways to undermine his presidency. Even now, it wasn't just during the first term. Even now. Okay. All right, let's see. Okay. Now, meanwhile, I mean, come on, these wars just keep on popping up, don't they? Thailand and Cambodia. I thought Buddhists were peace-loving. Hmm. Thailand warns clashes with Cambodia could move towards war. Especially Thailand has a reputation of being a peace-loving country. Cambodia, of course, not so much, with Pol Pot and all that. Cambodians can be very, very bloodthirsty in some cases. Pol Pot was a Cambodian. I know there are a lot of good, nice Cambodians, that's true, but also some of the worst sort of genocide crimes occurred in Cambodia. Thailand's leader has warned that clashes between Thailand and Cambodia, which have killed at least 16 people and displaced tens of thousands in both countries, could move towards war. So what's going on here? Acting Prime Minister, very long name, added that the fighting now included heavy weapons and had spread to 12 locations along the border. Thailand also accused Cambodia of firing into civilian areas and evacuated all villages deemed to be within radius of its rockets. Cambodia, for its part, accused Thailand of using cluster munitions. Cluster munitions are banned in much of the world because of their indiscriminate effect on civilian populations. Thailand has not responded to the allegations. Meanwhile, Thailand's foreign ministers told the Reuters news agency that there was no need for third-party mediation in the conflict, even as global leaders appealed for an immediate ceasefire. Yeah, let them knock themselves, let them go at it for a while, I think. Malaysian Prime Minister, who chairs the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, had earlier offered to facilitate talks between the two countries. I welcome the positive signals and willingness shown by both Bangkok and Phnom Penh to consider this path forward, Anwar told wrote on Facebook on late Thursday. People are using Facebook and X and these other social media sites to negotiate diplomatically. That's wild. That's 21st century for you. But Thai Foreign Ministry spokesman told the Reuters news agency that the situation must be solved through bilateral means, adding that Phnom Penh must stop its offensive moves. I don't think we need any mediation from a third country yet. This is the Foreign Ministry. Who is this? Anyway, this guy said, who is this? Okay. This is the Foreign Ministry spokesman. Okay. The comments came as both countries updated the death toll from the fighting. Thailand said 14 civilians and 1 soldier were killed in fighting, while provincial authorities in Cambodia said at least 1 civilian in this one province was killed. The U.S. has also called for an immediate cessation of hostilities, protection of civilians, and a peaceful resolution of the conflict. We are gravely concerned by the escalating violence along the Thailand-Cambodia border and deeply saddened by reports of harm to civilians, State Department spokesman said at a regular media briefing. China, which has political and strategic ties with Cambodia and Thailand, said it is deeply concerned over the conflict and hopes both sides can resolve issues through dialogue and consultation. Australia, the European Union, and France have also called for peace. The United Nations Security Council is expected to meet on Friday over the conflict. In a letter to the Council on Thursday, Cambodia's Prime Minister had urged it to intervene to stop Thailand's aggression. Thailand and Cambodia have each accused the other of firing the first shots on Thursday. Thailand claims the clash began with Cambodia's military deploying drones to conduct surveillance of Thai troops near the border. Cambodia says Thai soldiers initiated the conflict when they violated a prior agreement by advancing on a Khmer Hindu temple near the border. The dispute between the two countries dates back to more than 100 years ago, when the borders of the two nations were drawn after the French occupation of Cambodia. There were sporadic clashes over the years, which saw soldiers and civilians killed on both sides. The latest tensions ramped up in May after a Cambodian soldier was killed in a clash. This plunged bilateral ties to their lowest point in more than a decade. At a sports complex that was converted into an evacuation center on Thailand's Surin province, evacuees, many of them children and elderly, said they were still shaken by the rocket and artillery attacks they witnessed on Thursday. All right, so the French basically just sort of drew the border between the two countries any way they wanted, and that's now coming back to haunt the people who are there. All right. Let's go through some of the headlines on Newsmax now. And okay, Tulsi Gabbard doubles down, tells Newsmax Obama engaged in treasonous conspiracy, so she's not backing down. Good for her. Yes. Hope that she can continue to fight, stand up. I'm sure she's coming under a huge amount of pressure in many ways. Trump okays cuts to public broadcasting and foreign aid. All right. And he says not necessary to fire Powell. And okay, he also doesn't like the South Park. Come on. I hope he doesn't pay too much attention to that. Okay, State Department IG launches audit into $75 billion in aid. And Iran gives conditions to resume nuclear talks. Okay. And Trump order remove the homeless from the streets. Well, okay, well, let's see if he's just treating the symptoms or if he's actually going to be treating the cause here. President Donald Trump will be signing an executive order making it easier for municipalities to remove the homeless from the street. The executive order, which Trump will sign on Thursday, will redirect federal funds to ensure the homeless people impacted are transferred to rehabilitation, treatment, and other facilities, the White House said. White House did not say how much money would be allocated. So, yeah, he's treating the symptom and not the cause. Okay. Cause, well, there are many causes, but fundamentally, I think it's again breakdown of the two-parent heterosexual family. These people. I used to work in Washington D.C., a block and a half from the White House, on H Street there, and there were people there, sleeping on the subway ventilators and where the heat was coming up from the subway, and also sleeping in doorways before businesses opened and stuff like that. And as I walk past these people, I would think to myself, surely these people have family. Surely they have family. Fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, perhaps children. If my brother or if my sister were to be in that kind of situation, I would hope that I could be the first one to be there to try and offer any kind of assistance that he would accept. And maybe these people are beyond, but still, even then, if they need to go to a facility, if they need to go to a rehabilitation center, for example, then maybe I don't have the resources to do that, but I could do a fundraiser among my relatives and friends, something like that, or among his friends, colleagues, something like that. And many of these people are veterans, unfortunately. That's the unfortunate truth. Many of them are veterans, and they went through hellish experiences in war, and they are suffering psychological wounds that are not surface wounds necessarily, but certainly deep psychological wounds. And we as a society, I'm not saying government, but we as a society obviously need to help those people in any and every way that we can. And it looks to me as though, I don't know, President Trump is really only dealing with the symptoms. So get him off the street. That's the idea. Get him off the street. I don't want to see him on the street. And maybe now that he's working in the White House again for 6 months, maybe he's seen them. And I'm sure he has, because from his limousine, he can see them every time he passes by them. They're right there near the White House. They were there when I was there. I'm sure they're still there today. And of course, in New York, it's even worse. Every place else that he goes, every big city in America, every big city in America is suffering this kind of situation. But it boils down really to the two-parent heterosexual family. And the safety net that is built in that family. That's my opinion. My opinion happens to be a correct opinion, I think. Anyway, let me move on before I get too arrogant. Okay, let's see here. Let's go back to Newsmax. It's tragic, and it's something that that people who visit the United States always comment on. Korea used to have a lot of people like this everywhere, and they still do in some places. They still do, but not nearly as many as we used to have here. And I'm not exactly sure how the government dealt with that situation, but the number has certainly gone down a lot. All right, let's see here. Okay, Columbia University, they've settled. They're going to sell it. What was it, $200 million or something like that? Okay. Okay, Maxwell, yeah, Ghislaine Maxwell, yeah, she was interviewed yesterday, and her lawyer says that she answered every question. Rosetta Stone in Epstein case. Well, some people cast doubt on that. They're saying that, she's serving a 20-year sentence. So you would think that if she actually knew something, then her lawyer would be contacting the authorities to say, hey, look, Ghislaine Maxwell has some information. What can you give her in return? How can you maybe reduce her sentence in return for the information that she has? So, is she the Rosetta Stone? Okay. Well, yeah, we'll have to see. I don't think we know what she said. We only know that she answered every question. Okay, so all right. All right. No more lip service from schools. Okay. Aides worried about Biden running again. Why? Why? No, no, no. Let's do a fundraiser for Biden. Yes. Let's do a fundraiser. Joe Biden for president 2028. Joe Biden 2028. Yes, I'm all for it. This is great. In a significant development on Capitol Hill, Ron Klain, former White House chief of staff and one of President Joe Biden's closest confidants, testified Thursday behind closed doors before the House Oversight Committee as part of its investigation into the president's mental fitness for office. The hearing, which was not open to the press or public, marks a major step in House Republican. We don't have time here. Okay. Okay, let's wait. Are they talking about 2024? It's worried about, oh, I see. Okay. All right. So we're talking about 2024. Oh, shucks. I thought they were going to run him in 2028. Okay. I'm disappointed. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's see here. All right. Okay. All right. It's time to go. It's time to go. Senator McCormick delivers visionary maiden speech. Propaganda. Typical propaganda headline. All right, gotta go. I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow's Saturday. I will be here. And until then, God bless, Godspeed. May his kingdom come quickly.